Hi everyone, and welcome to Thought for the Day. I hope you're all okay and looking after yourselves during these challenging times. Today I'd like to talk about self-care and how it can bring calm to anxious situations, reduce or even prevent physical symptoms, and even help to address lifelong trauma. There have been 2 times in my life when my destiny was placed in the hands of skilled professionals who came into my life at the right time and used their God-given skills to perform operations that changed and possibly saved my life. Given the power of these 2 situations, when I was struggling with life, I'd look for other signs of divine intervention to help me through anxious times. I'd randomly flick through the Bible, hoping I would land on a verse that provided an answer. I'd pray for people to come into my life to help me. I'd try to force situations in a vain attempt to find peace. I'd hope for inspiration through music and lyrics. The more I tried and failed, the more I became frustrated, angry, and lost. I started questioning my faith and God's power. Things changed when, for the 3rd time, skilled experts came into my life again. But, unlike the first 2 times, the 3rd time didn't result in a dramatic, almost instant transformation. Instead, it gradually revealed a new view of the power of self-care, putting my destiny in my own hands and shining a light on the seed of recovery that God had already planted in my mind. And as that seed started to grow, as its green shoots were nurtured by simple, unexpectedly powerful techniques, and by small, almost inconsequential steps, unexpected benefits started to blossom. Steady progress, setbacks recognised earlier, enabling uplifting recovery. Previously muted conversations were heard. Long overdue cultural changes were initiated. Exercise levels increased. Mountains, both physical and psychological, were conquered. All from a seed, implanted by a higher power, exposed by experts, germinated by their initiated actions, enabling life changes to be realised. And then there was a flurry of unexpected, reaffirming and reassuring meetings with strangers that, given the events that led up to the situation, couldn't be pure coincidence. All the meetings that were impromptu and unplanned, but now that I was seeing things from a different angle, they brought clarity, direction, encouragement, support, and light to my darkness. Buoyed by these encounters, as I continued my journey, I soon realised the true impact of the previously unnoticed seed that had now grown into a small tree. And then the final piece of the jigsaw, again triggered by a chance connection with somebody I met on Facebook. That person posted a series of photos from a conference led by a charity that supports adults with congenital heart defects. I'd never heard of the charity before that post, but as I watched the videos from the conference and read articles written by psychologists, that final piece fell into place. The piece was central and completed a lifelong puzzle that originated from the trauma that was associated with my childhood heart operation. A trauma that, because my childhood was perfect in every other way, had gone undetected, unhindered, and unrecognised. But because the distraction I subconsciously employed to mask its existence had been stripped away, and because my focus had been changed, I could now address the trauma and its life-limiting side effects, the main one being stoicism. It's perfectly natural to be stoic at various parts of life, times that need inner strength, drive, and determination to carry on, regardless of the situation or the consequences. My battles with congenital heart defects had led to decades of stoicism as I battled through significant and difficult episodes of my life. I realised how much the stoicism had influenced my life, how it helped me survive and apparently mitigate my struggles and strife, how its brutality had influenced my approach to numerous situations and framed my views and reactions. But now, with the help of the support from the Congenital Heart Defect Charity, I'd recognised that the stoicism that had helped me through so much in the past was now holding me back, that it was no longer fit for purpose, had outlived its effectiveness, and only then did I realise what it had been hiding. Slowly, during my recovery from mental illness over the last few years, 54 years of stoicism has been peeled away to reveal hidden empathetic characteristics long disguised by half a century of toils, conflict, and fragile existence. Compassion and understanding, formed by the close connection with my empathetic centre, my heart, have been lost as a direct consequence of living with congenital heart defects. I quickly discovered that by reducing the stoicism, I felt more alive, stronger, and more in control of my health. It reduced my physical symptoms, opening a new view on how I can live my life, free from the millstones and negativity associated with being stoic. And the empathy that lay covered and disguised for many, many years brought benefits that far outweigh the very thing that kept it hidden. It was then that I realised all the progress I'd made, all the steps I'd taken, all the chance meetings, all the life changes I'd implemented, had all been originated from that seed. A seed that was implanted by God, had laid invisible in my mind, covered by previously forced, frantic search for visible signs and improbable miracles. The miracles had always been there. I always had the power in my own hands, but I was too obsessed with looking in the wrong direction and expecting divine intervention to make dramatic changes. God had already put everything in place, but I needed to take responsibility and realise the power of self-care. The benefits of taking responsibility for my own actions have been felt far and wide, especially in the current situation. On numerous occasions, thanks to techniques given to me by my counsellor, I've been able to recognise situations that previously would have increased my anxiety levels and reframe them to my advantage, rationalising the reality that my anxiety tried to hide and reducing the impact of each potential attack. Only by facing the situations with honesty, openness, and in many cases forgiveness, could I address the challenges without resorting to the more socially accepted and temporary distractions, such as retail therapy, alcohol, drugs. We all carry trauma from previous experiences and challenges, some, like mine, from childhood and others from adult life. To avoid the pain associated with the trauma, we rely on distractions to mask over the reality that darkens our past. But this mask prevents the deep-rooted trauma from being exposed, accepted, forgiven, and resolved. One of the many challenges of the current global pandemic is that we can no longer use many of the distractions to conceal our painful past. This, for obvious reasons, causes a dramatic increase in anxiety associated with the trauma and threatens more devastating consequences. But it is possible to reframe the difficulties and the vulnerability of the isolation. Without the distractions, this is the perfect opportunity to address lifelong trauma, to accept past difficulties and forgive. Spend time to look at your reactions. See what this situation is showing you. Recognise the tensions that are hurting you and, like my stoicism, are no longer working. Ask yourselves, how am I relating to the present situation, the upset, the stress, the anxiety, the irritation? Do I take it out on my children or other members of my family? Is it working for me or is it hurting me? The coronavirus has given us a massive opportunity to have a silent, private retreat in our own homes. Take 5, 10, 20 minutes just to hang out with yourselves and allow yourself to experience whatever you are experiencing. If it's anxiety, allow yourself to experience the anxiety. If it's fear, allow yourself to feel the fear. If it's anger, let that be there and observe it, accept it, and be with it. It's an opportunity to get in touch with your humanity, with your very vulnerable humanity. Vulnerability is seen as a dark emotion in today's society, an emotion that should not be portrayed, let alone embraced. At some point in our lives, possibly every minute of every day, we all feel vulnerable. To prevent negative reactions to our vulnerability, we protect ourselves with armour, This armour not only hides our vulnerability, but is also meant to make us feel stronger and more in control. In fact, the armour only serves to keep the vulnerability inside, weighing us down, and because of the unhappiness it brings, it makes us heavy-hearted, slowly and methodically eating away at our psyche from the inside. To deal with the grief, the pain, and the despair, we numb the vulnerability. But as vulnerability is the centre of our emotions, that also means that we can't feel love, we can't feel joy, and we can't feel empathy. Basic human connections that we all crave. But instead of living those emotions wholeheartedly, we live our lives hard-heartedly, protected but empty, alone and even more vulnerable. The armour brings safety and security, but because we are unable to let down our guard and soften a hardened persona, the armour is the only thing that is keeping us standing. We have a choice to continue to hide and numb our susceptibility, or have the courage to be imperfect, to recognise and embrace our vulnerability, to expose it to the harsh, cold, and unsympathetic outside world. When I was faced with this ultimatum, my hands were tied and the decision predetermined. Either I continue to hide my vulnerability, all its darkness, and suffer from escalating symptoms, or I follow the medical advice, remove my armour, become unstable, expose my vulnerability, change my path, and reconnect to love, joy, and empathy. It was that moment that changed my destiny. Every step I took, every peak I reached, every obstacle I overcame, every battle I won, every setback I endured, and every inch of progress was fueled by the very thing that had held me back for so long, my vulnerability. And because I had embraced my vulnerability, I was able to recognise and empathise with others, to relate to their vulnerability, and to let my vulnerable self be seen. The release helped me to start to love wholeheartedly, without strings, certainty, or guarantee, in a way I've never loved before, to feel deep joy, a lightness, and infinite gratitude. The choice to expose our vulnerability to a world that has other priorities is not an easy one to make. There is danger that others will misinterpret your bravery and strength for the exact opposites. Others may become upset and concerned by the previously hidden challenges that we reveal. Take it from someone who has successfully hidden my vulnerability from even the closest members of my family for most of my 54 years. The definite positives far outweigh the perceived negatives. Expose your vulnerability. Be heard. Seek help that is available. Make changes to your life, either psychologically, physically, or environmentally, to alleviate and challenge your difficulties. Peel away the armour and feel your body breathe and live again, wholeheartedly. As I thought about today's message, I was reminded of a healing service that Jan held in 2018. Instead of concentrating on the traditional acts of healing, for example, I can walk, I can see, Jan reframed the service on becoming whole, at peace, and at one with yourself. By facing your anxiety, fear, and trauma with openness, acceptance, and forgiveness, you begin to reframe your future and take another step closer to being totally healed. Since reducing the influence that Stoicism had on my life, the almost daily palpitations that I struggled with for 6 years have stopped. And it's been 6 months since the last major episode of palpitations. And the seed that had been planted all those years ago has brought me peace and demonstrated the importance of self-care, especially in difficult times. Self-care, the gift you can give yourself that will benefit others. Help one person at a time and start by helping you. Thanks for listening. Take care. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. God bless.